Well, I'll tell you an example that'll probably break your heart. The number of women we have come in this house that know we work with sex trafficking survivors that have no idea that they are sex traffickers.
Yeah.
It's like you have to explain it to them.
Yeah, they don't know that.
That's heartbreaking to me.
It is
That
heartbreaking.
shouldn't be a thing.
Speaking on who I was, who I am, and what I will become. Conversations of redemption. Conversations of redemption.
The home of the blues and barbecue, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is a city that knows pain, not as history, but as inheritance. This is a place where truth has always come at a cost, where standing up means standing alone, where silence is safer, but never free. Memphis doesn't pretend that justice is simple. It knows better. This city has watched what happens when people choose comfort over courage, order over conscience, and loyalty over truth. Ben's story belongs here because it lives at that crossroad. Not between good and evil, but between knowing and acting. Between what you're taught to defend and what you're forced to confront. Ben didn't come into this conversation as a victim. He came into it carrying responsibility. The kind that follows you when you've seen behind the curtain. When you've been close enough to power to understand how harm gets justified, minimized, or ignored. That kind of awareness doesn't leave quietly. It stays with you. It asks haunting questions at night. It forces you to decide who you are when doing the right thing costs you something real. Memphis understands that weight. This is a city that understands moral injury. The damage that happens when your values collide with your environment. Ben's story isn't about courage. It's about reckoning, about realizing that silence isn't neutral, that protecting the system can mean betraying your own conscience. This conversation isn't comfortable, and it isn't supposed to be, because growth doesn't happen where everyone agrees. It happens where honesty demands courage. This is Memphis, a city that remembers what happens when people refuse to look away. And this is a conversation about what it costs and what it gives back to finally tell the truth.
Ben Owen.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing, my friend?
Man, I'm good. How are you today?
Fantastic. What an incredible journey, story, human being you are.
I don't know about that last part, but thank you.
You know what? It's not about what we've done. It's what we do that defines who we are.
That's exactly right.
And my friend, you are defined as a hero in my eyes. And I'm honored for the tour of Memphis. Taking me to the places and the spots. It's just been incredible. I'm so honored to have you as a part of this documentary. I'd like to get into the low point and then the climb back. We've already seen a lot of the trap houses, the drugs, the alcohol, the shit that you have been through in your life. What was the lowest point? And I know we were at the house.
Yeah. That's such a hard question. I know I tell the story about hitting rock bottom in the lot next to that house, and that was when I was done. I don't know that was really the lowest point, if that makes sense. When I hit rock bottom, it was next to a trap house that I took you to in South Memphis that, I saw a lot of people die in and around that house. I lost a marriage, 7 vehicles, 2 homes, 3 businesses, my children to that house. I lost myself in that house. I lost Jess, my current wife, because of that house. We obviously came back from that. I lost hope there, man. I had given up on life. And the reason I don't know that I want to call that rock bottom my lowest point is because it was honestly a beautiful place to wake up, if that makes any sense at all.
100%.
And I don't mean just physically. Like that day, it was May 26th of 2019. It was really hot for a May day in Memphis. I do remember that. It was really humid. There was dew on the grass. I'm sleeping outside, which is not a great way to start the day, but it was a pretty day, man, to wake up, and the circumstances were really bad. I had lost a friend a week prior to murder. I had no recollection of the preceding 72 hours. I was covered in blood head to toe. I had toenails missing. I didn't have a cut on my body, and to this day, I have no idea what happened. We've been able to piece some pieces of the preceding few days back together just from phone calls with my parents. I know I had a heart attack. I don't remember that. But I somehow butt dialed my mom while they were working on me. And
Isn't that something?
yeah, my poor mother, dude.
Wow.
The stuff I put my parents through is, I hate thinking about that.
How's
but,
that relationship now?
Oh, it's great.
I would
It's great.
imagine they got to be pretty proud of you.
Yeah, they are. I think my parents had, I've been struggling with addiction, alcoholism, and mental illness, since I was 12, 13. And I think they finally accepted, probably before I was 18, that like the best I was ever going to do would be for them to say, Ben's doing really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I bet you could probably relate to that. Like they were convinced, like they'd been told by doctors to keep my dental records handy multiple times throughout my life because I was going to be found dead in a ditch somewhere.
Sure.
I just had no impulse control. So, yeah, I think my parents are pretty damn proud of what we're doing today. I don't think they ever expected any of this. I say that, but if you ask them, I think they would probably say otherwise. I think they did always expect something great out of me. I didn't see that they saw that. So.
Sure.
I say rock bottom is a beautiful place to be because my whole life I had struggled with this emptiness inside me, a void, and I tried to fill it with everything under the sun: women, sex, dope, alcohol, violence, you name it. I tried it, man, and I just wanted to feel different. I wanted to change the way I felt. And when I woke up on that unusually hot May day in 2019, I didn't give a shit anymore. Like I was done, but I was okay. Like I was just okay being present in that empty lot with no memory. I didn't need dope anymore. I didn't need alcohol anymore. And I didn't even need Jess or my kids. And that may sound bad, but like I was content with who I am and I was ready to leave South Memphis and do something different. So I don't know that I would say that was my lowest point. Leading up to that, God, dude, there were some real...
There's some real lows.
There were some real lows.
Sure.
James, my 9-year-old, he was present with me for a lot of the worst days. Now, my older kids, they were shielded from a lot of this because they have a different mother who's not an addict. And,
Right.
I'm sure, like, trauma-wise, it probably jacked them up pretty bad having a dad go from your scoutmaster, your t-ball coach, to being on the cover of Just Busted every week. But those relationships are good today. Anyway, ADHD 1, 2, 3. James had to endure a lot of this with us. Now he was 1, 2, 3, and in a truck, $700 truck that I basically scammed a dope boy out of.
Yeah.
With stolen plates. I don't know how that thing kept running. He lived in that vehicle with us. We had no heat, no AC. We're giving rides to prostitutes to their dates just to get money into the little community of crackhead friends so that we could all smoke. And James is in this truck with us in a car seat with an HIV positive prostitute shooting dope literally a foot away from him. And I'm telling you this story because one of the lowest points in my life and one that I still think back to a lot, and especially when I'm in situations like this where I've got somebody as awesome as you and as awesome as Jim Cole here in Memphis seeing what we're doing, like I feel like I don't deserve these things because I remember what I did. And one of the...
You know that's a false...
I do. I know. My head
yeah,
likes to... I know they're not real, but my head wants
Sure.
to go these places, And I very vividly remember an exceptionally cold night in South Memphis. We were in this truck, and the HIV positive, one of the many HIV positive prostitutes we used to give rides to, was trying to find a vein. And were you an IV user?
No.
Okay. So,
Never had a drug problem in my life.
Okay. All right. So I was an IV drug user, and a lot of people don't realize this, but when you're trying to find a vein and you hit one, you fill a syringe with blood. So she's got a syringe filled with HIV positive blood and starts speaking in tongues. And a crazy waving this thing around a foot away from my 2-year-old. And I'm flipping the fuck out. Like, what do you do? What do you do? If I startle her, is she going to stab my kid? Like, what is about to happen? And it was just, a cacophony, a series of wild events like that no child on earth has any reason to be exposed to. And I just kept putting him in circumstances like that. We were kidnapped with our kid at one point, held hostage for ransom, basically.
Yeah, by the dope boy.
By the dope boy. And that happened more than once, dude. Like, I just... He turned out far better than I ever... He's the most well-rounded of all of my kids. I've got 8 of them. And I thank God for that every day. I don't know how he turned out the way he did. But...
Because of the leadership of his father, right? Like, you turned around, right? Kids don't listen, they watch. Right?
Well,
they
that's
see.
exactly right. Your kids aren't paying attention to what you tell them. They're paying attention to what you show them.
Right.
And luckily, I don't think those early years have much of an impact on them. But it's really cool. If you ask James, his teachers have had to get this clarified a few times. I don't tell him this. I make my living selling data to the outdoor sports industry, right? I own a data intelligence company. We do digital media. That's how I earn a living. My kid would never tell you that. He doesn't even know that. If you ask James what, and Ava too, what mommy and daddy do for a living, they save people.
Right.
That's their
That's why
perception.
you have well-rounded kids.
Yeah, and so they do have a pretty good. I think we model what parents should be, and especially what a loving father and mother should be to these kids very well today. But that hasn't always been the case.
Sure.
That was a really long answer to your question. My lowest points were 1,000 times where I utterly and completely missed the mark of being a father and a husband. Yeah. And I can give you countless examples of that. The situations I put my first wife and my second wife in, and my children in. You said at the beginning the things that I've gone through. I look at it like things I put myself through.
Sure.
I've heard a lot of your backstory, not all of it. And when you hear yours, it's like, that tracks everything that he has gone through and done. Yeah. I can see that. You hear mine, and you want to just be like, you're a fucking dumbass. Yeah. And that's true. Like, I don't push back on that.
I deal with it too, right? Like, I think a lot of us as survivors deal with that. Like, I'm standing in a room with Homeland Security agents and DEA and retired police and agents around the world, like these highly respected, adored human beings, and I'm standing in there like, what the fuck am I doing in this room? Yeah. Like, I'm not worthy of being here. Yeah. But then there's a point where we have to pull ourselves back to reality, and it's not what we've done. It's what we do that defines us. Right. And we would not be around these people had we not been worthy of it. Like,
you're exactly
the Jim Coles of the world, the Kevin Branzettis of the world are not going to have somebody in that setting that's not worth it.
You're absolutely right. We're in those rooms for a reason.
You, right? Like, you have, this fucking sentence is crazy. You have rescued refugees from Afghanistan.
That...
From being a crackhead to rescuing Afghanistan. You are worthy of being in the company of the people that you are with, right? Like, you've earned that. You've earned that, right? And there comes a point where we have to realize that we're human beings, and none of us had a guidebook when we got to this place on how to do this. And so it's experiential. And sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes I don't know many human beings that haven't made a mistake.
Right? Oh, I don't know a single one.
And so it's about understanding that we're not finished fucking up either, bro.
Oh no,
right?
No. Not by a long shot.
We now are smart enough and experienced enough to control the kind of fuck ups that we have.
Yeah.
Right. Like
the
screw ups I have now might be a speeding ticket or a seatbelt violation.
Right.
It's not breaking into a house. It's not robbing somebody.
It's the intent behind our screw ups is always positive. I'll push back on our fuck ups might just be speeding tickets, because we're both doing kind of big work, and sometimes when we fuck up, I hate to say this, people die, like if it's not our fault they died, but if I'm working, and this is especially true because of the prevalence of fentanyl in Memphis, if I'm case managing a situation and I go left with somebody when I should have gone right, they may not come back from that. Now it's not my fault
and
they
on
went
the
and
same
used.
topic, if I miss a message in my DM,
Man,
that person might off themselves
Yeah.
because they were taking one last shot
Yeah.
to see, this guy says that he cares about me. Let me see if that's true. And he doesn't respond.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
and that's heavy,
Nobody
dude.
cares.
That's heavy.
It is heavy, and so I think with again, it's funny to go back to like superheroes, but what does Spider-Man say? With great responsibility, or with great power comes great responsibility. And it's, I feel like the opportunities that we've both had give us great power, and with that comes great responsibility. We have the power to influence people's lives,
Yes.
to save them or ruin them, and it's not our fault if they get ruined, but we've put ourselves in a position to be those people.
Yeah.
Right? No, we built this brick by brick.
Yep.
Right. We've put ourselves in this position because I think you're of the same heart that I am. Like, it's the way I tip the scales for my life. It's the way I give back and I make amends by giving my life over to service. Right. And there's no greater feeling than when a life is saved. Right. Like,
Yeah, there's that. There's not. You're absolutely right. The one thing that comes close, or maybe right on par with it, is seeing women get their kids back. You know, when you're able to reunite a
to
family,
me,
because it's the
that's
same thing.
That's saving
You've
a life.
saved
That's
the
saving
kids'
a
lives, man.
family. That's saving
Yeah.
a generation.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
That's where it's at, though. And you know, when you really commit yourselves to work like this, the downside of it that nobody really talks about is you literally have to give up self entirely, which isn't a bad thing, but it makes recovery kind of hard. Not recovery in like the 12-step recovery that I have to do concept, but like resetting, man. Like there's no me time. That's not a thing. Because like you said, if I miss a message, what could the consequences of that be? And we, during the Afghan evac, we saw that play out in real time. I had to sleep, you know. I went 60 hours in one stretch, slept 8 hours, and woke up to 4 people dead that I was responsible for moving. And that's like shitty shit. And it plays out in the work we do here in Memphis too.
And the more I go into this, shooting this documentary, and the more that I learn, like what these people do with Operation Lightshine and the National Child Protection Task Force, and what these agents that are doing this work, some of them, I mean, I have just the utmost respect for these people. Like, they work nonstop. Some of them do this outside of their normal job.
Yeah.
And the burnout is real, the stress is real, the anxiety is real, the vicarious trauma is real.
Oh, that one's a big one.
Sometimes they just miss a call.
Yeah.
And then they get the knowledge that something happened because they missed that call. And then they have to live with that. They have to move forward, and regardless of how much counseling we can give them about it's not your fault.
Like, you've got to go right to the next case. You have to, it sucks.
Right, and to see, it's almost like the same thing with the Viktor Frankl book that I read in prison, Man's Search for Meaning, because that book was the most profound book I've ever read. Seeing somebody that was victimized and traumatized on a level that makes mine pale in comparison, and then to see what he did with his life to help other people heal. On the flip side, like when I was in Jacksonville with OLS, to see these people who have never done anything bad in their life, maybe, you know, stupid shit when they were kids, but never committed a felony, never been to prison, and they sacrificed their lives to save these people. I sit here, I can't just sit here knowing that this is happening and not do something about it.
That's right.
Like, and that's where I think my level of respect for you came in so much. You're doing something about it.
Well,
Can you talk a little bit about the operations that you have going on here, just as a summation of what you're doing?
Well, you mentioned 2 amazing organizations. I don't know if we've had a chance to talk about this, but it was actually a volunteer from the National Child Protection Task Force that tricked me into working Afghanistan.
Really?
That's how all that started, which is how I ended up meeting the Lightshine guys and all that. It was actually totally unrelated to, well, I guess it was child trafficking related, because that was going on during the evac. But you look at guys like that who are on the law enforcement side, they're doing all these great deeds. They 100% have had to give their lives to that, and that's why you and I think both understand they're the real heroes.
100%.
They don't have a bad past to atone for like me and you do.
Right.
You know, and so along that vein, basically what we're doing out here in Memphis is I'm trying to atone for my past. I hated this city. When I left it in 2019, I had nothing in my heart for this place. Over time, that changed. My wife Jess and I, approaching rock bottom, had our foxhole prayer. You've probably heard me talk about it, and it was basically, God, get us out of hell together, and we'll spend the rest of our lives coming back for people we left. And well, he didn't get me out of hell fast enough. You know, I got myself out of hell. Like, I was rationalizing it, and like, I don't have to go back. I'm done with Memphis. I'm moving on with life. That's what I'm supposed to do. And we got to work saving refugees and getting them out of Afghanistan. Like, I started realizing I might actually be capable of doing something that matters.
Sure.
You know, and so my perspective started shifting on Memphis. And after we worked with a lot of these real badass people who were doing these great things as their job, I started realizing a lot of the same methods we're using over there might work on the dope tracks of Memphis. And so I started seeking out mentorship from Green Berets that had experience in village stability operations, former agency folks teaching us about, you know, collecting human intelligence. Basically all these methods that our government uses all the time to go do jacked up stuff around the world. I start looking at it, I'm like, could we really like repurpose this and do something good with it on the streets of America? Would that work? And the resounding answer from everybody we talked to is yes. So Jess and I came back to Memphis, and you know, 2014 was the first time I got arrested. By the time I got sober in 2019, I had been arrested, I think, like 18, 20 times. Somehow made it through all that without becoming a felon. Thank God. Yeah, and like my first arrest was 14 felony counts, right?
Jesus.
Well, to be fair, look, I was driving home from the firing range with my own drugs and my own guns.
Right.
You know, but they charged me like I was Pablo Escobar guarding my supply of dope.
Sure.
Anyway, God, where was I going with that?
So, no, but you ADHD'd me too, because there's a funny side story. When you went to the Afghanistan thing, they were like, they did the background check, and right?
Oh,
remember?
God.
And you were like, but I haven't been convicted of any of
Yes.
those.
The last time I told that story, I don't know if I can tell. I can tell the whole one because actually he's back at. Fuck it, I'm telling it. So during the evacuation out of Afghanistan, they invited me to come to United States Army Special Operations Command at Fort Bragg and basically lead a training class with some third group Green Berets. It was like off the books. None of this is real. In their spare time, they're trying to save Afghans too, right? So I don't want to make it sound like this is a military training.
Right.
But I had to go on to Fort Bragg, where the Special Operations Command headquarters is, and you have to go through a background check at the gate there. So I didn't know that, you know. We get there, and leading up to this, so this was September probably of 2021. Leading up to that, because of the weird group of people I was suddenly working with, like I knew it was a matter of time before somebody finds my background and outs me.
Right.
I wasn't gonna have that happen.
Right.
I'm owning it. So I'd started
Right.
talking on LinkedIn about being a heroin addict and alcoholic in recovery, and you know, all this shit happened, and so I'd been open about it, so they knew. But the MPs at Fort Bragg obviously didn't know because they're not following me on LinkedIn. So this girl, I realized what's happening as she's doing it. It's a thick white girl, you know, sleeved out, and I'm like, that's my girl right there.
Right.
So I texted Jess. I was like, here's what's about to happen. I don't know how this is going to end. My strategy is going for the thick white girl. We're going to see if I can get through this, right? And so the MP caught on to what I was doing real quick.
Right.
She's like, I got your number. I got your number. Let's go outside.
Yeah, you ain't slick.
Fuck. So we go outside. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you know exactly what I mean. Cut the shit. What's up with all these felonies, bro? Why are you trying to get on post? And I was like, well, hold up. What are you talking? And I was being genuine at this point because I have never been convicted of a felony. So she pulls the NCIC report or whatever it is that the MPs had access to, and sure as shit, it looked like I had I think it was like 24 felony convictions, which is weird because I'd only been charged in total, I think it was like 18 felonies or something. So it's obviously something screwed up here.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, no, I was never even charged with that. That charge is duplicated. I beat everything on this page. Like, it was all pled down to misdemeanors. And she's like, well, you got anybody that can confirm that for us? And I got smart with it. I was like, oh yeah, I just keep the paperwork in my truck. Come on. She's like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, no, I don't have the fucking paper. What are you talking about? She's like, well, do you got somebody you can call? And I was like, well, I mean, we can call drug court. And so I was going to call my buddy Brian Owens, who is, I mean, that guy saved my life about 50 times over. The man saved my life. Matter of fact, the dude sitting in the room with us today wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Brian Owens too. So like, I want to give props to Brian. He's saved tons of us.
Shout out to Brian Owens.
That's right. And I called Brian, and the MP's like, I need to talk to the judge. By this point, she's got her captain over there. So I'm thinking I'm going to jail again, like for having done
Did I
nothing.
get
Like I'm
convicted
like,
of those?
like a master sergeant invited me here. What the hell is the problem? And Brian's like, yeah, look, I got you. Put him on the phone. So he gets on with them, pretending he's Judge Dwyer. And I can tell the story now because Judge Dwyer has retired. All right. I don't know that he ever actually said he's the judge, but the MP presumed he's the judge. And
That's not your fault.
she said, she gave him my name, Benjamin Owens. Well, my last name is Owen. Brian's last name is Owens. And we always pay attention to the difference. Your average human being does not. So she gave him the wrong last name, and he decided to get smart with her too. He's like, I don't even have a record with this guy at all. And then so she starts arguing with him because they're pulling shit. So then he was like, okay, all right, yeah, I got him. No, he has no felonies. Those are all misdemeanors. And so they put him in my base pass, and I got to go on base. And like, at this point, I'm a crackhead with less than 2 years off the streets.
Right.
Or less than 2 years sober. I was a little over 2 years off the streets. And I'm standing in a room in front of guys that like 20 years ago, that was my dream, was to become a Green Beret.
Sure.
Because my dad was an Army Ranger. He wanted to be a Green Beret. He never got to be that. And I had to outdo, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And that was like the first extremely surreal experience of my life. But since then, it's been a lot. And you hit the nail on the head. Like, we're in rooms we logically have no business being in.
Right.
But because of the life experience we bring to the table and how we're able to apply that into committing good deeds out in bad places, not only do we have a place in those rooms, like I think those rooms aren't the same without us. Like, we need to be in those rooms.
Facts. We're necessities.
We're necessities in those rooms. That's right.
Because the response from those agents after I spoke to them moved me to my core. Right? There's tears in their eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to hear a survivor. Like, for me, I grew up hating the police because I didn't know that these people existed.
Right.
I had no idea these heroes were out there, and that's something that one of the first things that I even said to Jim when I talked to Jim was, y'all are the heroes that I needed when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't know these people existed.
Well, they didn't
I think
when you were a kid.
Well, they
That
did.
agency didn't exist.
Right. But now there are so many victims out there right now that trauma bond to their abusers because they have no idea these people are out here literally working themselves to death to save them. And I think the lack of awareness that we have in this country of the existence of these organizations is appalling. Right?
No,
like, we can all name 50 different drug and alcohol clinics and programs.
Oh yeah, we see them on TV.
You see them on TV.
Yeah.
You've never seen an anti-child trafficking commercial on TV.
No,
Right? And so that's half the reason. I would say it's more than half the reason why I'm out doing this documentary.
Well, I'll tell you an example that'll probably break your heart. The number of women we have come in this house that know we work with sex trafficking survivors that have no idea that they are sex traffickers.
Yeah.
It's like you have to explain it to them.
Yeah, they don't know that.
That's heartbreaking to me.
It is
That
heartbreaking.
shouldn't be a thing. And I will say this, I'm sure somebody from HSI is going to watch this. You guys are missing a huge opportunity for publicity. Like, I've interacted with every federal agency you can imagine, literally, on both sides. And I have never come across, forget federal agency, I've never come across an organization that is as across the board staffed with good men and women as HSI. Like, they're just good people.
Yeah.
They're just good people. And then what I think you see is a lot of these organizations that work in the space we do, and trying to counter trafficking or reduce the impact of dope on kids and sex trafficking on kids, it attracts the same kind of persona, the same kind of heart that that agency is after. Anyway, I had to throw that in there because I'm just a huge fanboy of Homeland Security investigations.
Yeah, they're just, what they do is life-saving, and it speaks to my heart, which is why I'm fully in. So for somebody that maybe dealing with, or just coming out of dealing with addiction, you weren't just an addict, my man. You were an addict. Like, you were full into that shit.
Yeah.
And so there are some people that are addicts that feel there's no hope. Like, there's no way to get over it. What would you say? What would you say to somebody that is right on the cusp of, I say this famously, A, you don't have to go to rock bottom.
Right.
And B, nobody goes to rock bottom twice. Right? You'll hear a lot of, I think it's become kind of a catchphrase where people are, oh man, when I was at rock bottom once, I'm like, fuck you, first of all. I've been to rock bottom, and I will die before ever going back.
Yeah.
And I think that's really rock bottom. You're either going to give up and kill yourself, or you're going to change your life.
You know, you actually just described my rock bottom perfectly. And to be totally blunt with you, I just assumed you had a drug problem because I can tell you were somebody that has come back. Usually drugs are the best way to get to rock bottom. Yeah. So I just made that assumption about you. But
thanks.
You're welcome. You're in the club.
Addict by proxy.
Dude, the journey to rock bottom, it's needless. You can stop it. You can arrest that process at any point throughout it. There were 1,000 times, at least 1,000 times in my story where a rational human being looking at my story, be like, oh, great, we're right. In fact, I've actually been on podcasts where I tell a story and they think it's about to get positive because I'm nowhere near it yet. Like, let's just wait, kid. You know, it doesn't have to get that bad. You don't have to do that. If we're talking addiction and alcoholism specifically, there's a solution out there, and it's been around for 90 freaking years. You know, you don't have to do the AA way. You don't have to do Narcotics Anonymous. Just pick your place. It doesn't matter which one. Get involved in one. This shit works, but you have to actually do the work. And that was my problem. I always thought I was special. You know, I'm smarter than those guys, or you know, I'm just a drunk. They're crackheads and junkie. Well, I'm going to go become a crackhead and a junkie before I'm going to listen to it. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't have to make it that damn hard. I'm a slow learner sometimes. I literally, any lesson of consequence, I have to learn the hard way.
The hard way.
I did most of my life. You know, I'm at a point now where I think I'm finally smart enough to be able to learn from somebody else's mistake. I can watch them. Yeah. You know, but your average person in America, like, I mean, I'm talking, I was bottom of the barrel junkie, crackhead. It was bad, you know?
Yeah. Right.
And there's tons of people that don't ever get to that point. They don't have to. You know, they can watch somebody else do it. Like, you know what? I should probably dial back. Right. And so if there's anybody watching this, I think that was your question, that is battling an addiction, and then they're losing hope. Dude, I'm telling you right now, if I can come back from this, anybody can. And you know how many people in South Memphis will tell you that? Like, I was bad out there. And I've seen people who didn't come from as high as I did and fall as far as I did, but they still ended up as low as I, you know what I mean? And they were there for a whole lot longer, and they've come back from it. We've got a guy right now who is, I think he turned 77 Friday. He's a Vietnam vet, black dude, 1-9 Marine, The Walking Dead in Vietnam. You want to talk about some trauma? Those guys have seen some trauma. He'd been high since he got back from Vietnam 50 years ago. Wow. And right now I think he's either coming up on 9 months or a year clean for the first time since he got back from Vietnam, you know, as a 25-year-old man. Wow. And that's crazy. If he can do it, and his drug of choice is crack. The first house I took, the house on Melrose Street. But he was inside that house when dude put a gun up my head and pulled the trigger. Wow. Like, me and him go way back out. He was bad out there. If people like that, anybody can come back from it, you know?
So tell me about the future for Ben Owen and the goals. We've seen, we've literally walked through the places where you've gone to the lows, and it's been an incredible day and an incredible journey through it. I see what I think is the vision.
Yeah, I think.
But let's hear it in Ben Owen's words, the dream, the vision. What's to come?
Well, we're in Memphis, Tennessee. This is America's deadliest city. It shouldn't be. Like, you walked in one of the most violent zip codes in America today. Did you feel in danger at all?
Not in the slightest.
You met some random people on the dope track, the hoe track. Like, everybody's cool, right?
Red,
yeah. So
Right.
that's,
We met Red today.
yeah, if you've been out to Melrose or the nursing home, you know Red. I'm trying to get the real Memphis on the front page of the news, not the statistical Memphis. I'm doing that by trying to remove every driver of instability we have out there on the streets so that we can reintroduce things like economic opportunity and arts and just human flourishing. Sure. Human connection is a huge part of what we do. We try to meet everybody where they're at. So that's a long way to prep the answer I'm about to give you. We're shutting down dope houses, and we're not doing it by shooting people or sending them to jail. We're trying to get the dope boys on a better path. We're trying to remove the economic incentive for them to reopen it by getting all of the addicts, as many as we can who are willing, into rehab and sober and back into the workforce. What I want to see done is I want everybody off the streets of Memphis. We're starting in South Memphis, and I'll carry it wherever the hell I can, you know. Get people back into the workforce, get them custody of their own kids back. That's a huge thing, is trying to put families back together out there.
Sure.
I want the next generation of Memphis to come from somewhere different than this last generation of Memphis came from. I want them to come from stable households with parents who work jobs. You know, I want them to break out of these cycles of generational poverty and trauma and abuse. Child sexual abuse is a massive issue in this city, and probably in most major cities.
Yeah.
But I'm going to speak on what I know, and I'm not going to put anybody's business out there, but this is an issue that impacts gang members. It has impacted, you know, some of the hardest core gangsters you see out there. If you actually can get a conversation going with them and they trust you enough, a lot of them have something like that in their past. And so what I'm trying to do is, whatever trauma you went through as a kid, whatever injustice, whatever lack of opportunity, okay, that happened, all right? Now, what are we going to do with that? You know, are you going to repeat the cycle of hurting the community that got you on this path? Or are you going to do something different? And the conversation goes different whether we're working with, you know, a gang member or an addict or a drug dealer or even a sex trafficker or a sex trafficking survivor. We're trying to meet every one of these people where they're at and get them on the path they should have always been on. So right now I think we have 10 houses in the city that we use for the express purposes of getting people sober, on their feet, employed, self-sufficient, and then family reunifications and trafficking recoveries.
It's amazing.
So I want that to expand dramatically. I think I was telling you earlier today, getting to 10 houses was my 5-year plan. You know, and we're 2 years in.
Two?
Yeah, right. And so I'm hoping now that, you know, within the next 2 to 3 years, we can open up our own treatment center. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Like, there are great treatment centers. In fact, you got to meet some guys see some guys from Heart Center at lunch today. There are great centers that are doing intensive outpatient programming. There are great places that do detox. There's great places that do 28-day and long-term and job skills training and parenting classes and financial literacy. These are all great things. We need every one of them. I want all of them under one roof, right? I want to be able to take somebody from Macklemore and stick them in a building, and they don't have to leave that 5-acre property until they are ready to go out and become an employer and start their own business, you know, rebuild their whole life. And so that's ultimately my goal, is to create that center.
What is your biggest roadblock?
Biggest roadblock right now is, I mean, the obvious and easy answer is funding. But I mean, that's obviously a big barrier. But I almost feel like it's a cop-out to give you that answer.
Sure. So aside from money,
so
what's the biggest block? Are you finding resistance from, like, political opposition or from a street level, from the gangs, or what is the biggest blockade outside of money?
We've not run into resistance. I won't call it resistance. I mean, I'm just going to be blunt. You saw what we're doing today.
Yeah.
You either love what I'm doing, what we're doing, or you hate babies. There's no in between.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's literally just objectively good for the entire community. We're not trying to lock up anybody outside of child predators. And guess what? The streets love locking up child predators.
Right.
Actually, they love doing something else, but we'll not talk about
Right.
that. So
it's a good thing they like to do is lock up
right.
child predators.
we can all rally around what we're doing out there. The problem outside of money that I feel like I've run into the most is people want to come alongside what we're doing for the wrong reasons sometimes. We've had lots of people come alongside it and use it as an opportunity to self-aggrandize maybe. I've had a number of people.
Ego plays a big part in
Ego's
lot
a
of
big
things.
deal, man. And look, you're meeting with a lot of anti-trafficking organizations. You're gonna run into this a lot. I'll just be honest.
You're gonna run into some egos.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's challenge there. There's challenge getting. It's a challenge getting Memphis to show up for Memphis sometimes. There's this mentality here of what's in it for me, and well, there's a lot in it for you. I don't care who you are.
Sure.
There's a lot in it for you.
Even
These
if you
are-
don't participate.
That's right.
there's
These
a
are
lot
your
in it for
streets, you know.
right?
So the big, and this still I feel like goes back to funding, but I do want to talk about it because it's a huge problem the way I see it. We've got some big organizations and institutions in Memphis. We've got iBank, we've got FedEx was founded here, we've got AutoZone headquartered here. You guys need employees. I'm getting the biggest barrier to employees is criminal records and dope. Like those are huge issues for employers here. XAI, you know, Elon Musk retweeted a picture of me. So like he knows who I am.
Really?
He may not know my name, but he knows what I look like. Let's put it that way. XAI is building this huge facility here. So there's a lot of money available in Memphis. I wish somebody would just come alongside and be like, you know what? You're right. It's time Memphis shows up for Memphis. Because out of all the money I've spent in this city, this is sad. 99% of it came from outside of Memphis, man.
That is sad.
You know, it's America watching. We love an underdog story as a society.
Oh,
everybody does.
everybody does.
So America's watching what we're doing in Memphis. Like, hell yeah, I want to be part of that. I need Memphis to be like, hell yeah, I'm already part of that. You know, it show up in big ways. Like start making phone calls to politicians. I feel like what we're doing should be imminently fundable by the state, by the Department of Justice, by Kennedy's HHS. Like I just need that awareness. And so it's a challenge when you have a large social media presence and you've been on things like the Sean Ryan show or you're hanging out with Sonny Von Cleveland. You know, people see that like, oh, these guys are set, they're loaded.
Yeah.
Dude, no, I'm not.
Yeah, no.
You know how much of what we're doing has had to come out of my own pocket?
Yeah, no.
Like,
Everything
it's
has
rough.
come out of my own pocket.
It's rough.
What do you think it is that in my mind, logically, I would look at, you know, the government that has billions of dollars. They just give billions of dollars to some of the dumbest
The
things in the world.
dumbest things I've
like,
ever seen.
There's like research of the dumbest shit that I've come to learn of, like being part of the city government and being involved in like Palm Springs, California, where I live. You have given hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars to like Plaza Theater. 20 million, as a matter of fact. Never given more than 1 million to any other entity in the history of the entire city. Why do you think it's so difficult for people that are doing things that will fundamentally change a community at its core? Why do you think it's so hard? Because logically, I would think somebody would just look at it and be like, shit, that will change this community.
That's a scary question to ask.
Do you think they want the problem?
That's why it's a scary question to ask. Because if you really sit down and start looking at these things, you have to start wondering, why
Yeah.
don't they want to solve it? You know.
Why?
Now, to be fair, I've not gotten in front of the state of Tennessee. You know, I've
Sure.
got a state rep who absolutely loves what we're doing, and maybe she'll be able to help get us some funding at some point. So I haven't asked for that money, and I don't think the city of Memphis has it. But you look at politics across America as a whole. You know, we had a conversation over lunch. I think you and I think very much aligned on everything political. There's some problems with our political system, and I'm starting to really, I don't even want to say I'm getting jaded. Like, I grew up thinking America is the greatest nation in the world, and we can do no wrong, and all that. And then Afghanistan really opened my eyes to a lot. Like, we are doing jacked up things as a government. And so I'm starting to wonder, I'm starting to notice, I guess, that it does seem politicians might be incentivized to keep the problems. And then we all know, and I've actually kind of learned how this has happened, doing what I do for a living. The media is financially incentivized to create division. Division.
100%.
And the reason for that, they're businesses. Ad revenue is how most of them make their money. And I've noticed on our own stuff on the Black Rifle side that, if it's controversial, it's getting clicks, bro. Guess what? If it gets clicks, I'm getting paid. So we've created a self-fulfilling prophecy in America. If you have a controversial article that divides people, it makes people take a polarizing stance one way or the other, man, that article is getting shared everywhere, which means you're getting paid out the wazoo. People jump into comments, they fight about it. The algorithm rewards a fight.
True, unless you are spotlighting the problem I'm talking about. I just put out a reel. If I put out a reel, I generally get pretty good engagement. I just put out a reel spotlighting the government giving $40 billion a year to the counter-drug fight and only $250 million a year to child protection and exploitation efforts.
Now think about that.
What if the whole world knew that? Right, because I'm quite sure the majority of this country does not know that number.
You're right, and so to clarify what you just said,
But the
that's 40 billion
is
with a
not
B.
pushing that video.
And you got to wonder why that is.
But I'll go on and talk about how my brother screwed my kid's mom, or how I stabbed a guy in the face for raping me, and it gets a million.
It goes
views.
viral, man.
You'll push it.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that? What do you think? I'm asking a rhetorical question at the end of the day,
right.
but
Well,
I think they want the problem.
I think they do want the problem. There are so many people whose income is directly tied to the problem existing.
100%.
That 40 billion with a B that is going to
How much of that
the drug
actually
problem.
gets spent on the problem?
Right, a lot of it goes to staff and overhead and growing agencies and that's research. That's a big one. Let's just assume on the surface that that's all okay, and every dime of that 40 billion was spent well, that it went where it was supposed to, and nothing untoward happened. What are the outcomes? What have they done?
Right.
Is the war on drugs getting better?
Because the recidivism rate is through the roof. The
Overdose
failure
deaths are
over
through
deaths
it's
through the roof.
So I think
And what could you do with 40 billion that you couldn't do with 39 billion?
Right.
And if you see what these organizations like OLS, like NTCBF, if I said that right.
NCPTF.
NCPTF, the acronyms.
We fight monsters, WFM.
Right. WFM, 106.5 WFM. You see what these organizations are doing with the limited funding that they have.
Yeah.
Imagine if you just peeled off one of those Bs and gave it over here. They could do 10 times what they're doing.
They could, and I've,
They want the problem. Because those kids that they're failing to save become the $40 billion problem they're trying to solve.
Bingo.
When you will take the pedophile who rapes a child and give him 2 years in prison, in a state prison, federal level, I've come to learn recently, is doing really good at throwing these fucking people away. You give him 2 years because he's a repeat customer. You know he's going to get out. You know he's going to rape another kid. Yeah. And you know he's coming back. But you give the 17-year-old black kid with an ounce of crack in his pocket 60 years in prison.
Yep. Doesn't make any sense, does it?
Because you want the problem.
You've got to.
They have to. What other answer is there?
Yeah.
Because I've talked to some, and I don't want to offend any of my friends that are in the government or in the agencies
right.
or any of that.
We're not blaming you guys
I'm not
for
blaming
this.
them
This
directly
is
because
a
there are
policy
some
level.
really good people
Yeah.
out there. And it's hard to even get an answer from them because I understand the political bureaucracy that exists. There's no other logical answer you can give me except they want the problem.
Yeah. and so here's the weird thing about that. We learned this doing the Afghan evac. We were getting so much pushback from the State Department, yet everybody we worked with at the State Department saw the problem the same way we did.
Yeah.
But we couldn't get anything done.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe this issue we're talking about is kind of the same. Like all the players want the solution, but nobody can figure out how to actually make it happen. And I think in American politics and the federal government, we have this mentality of this is the way we've always done it. Yeah. And we're going to continue.
The only out that I can give them is that you see the drug addict. You see the homeless guy. You see the beggar on the corner begging for your change. You don't see the 4-year-old that's being abused. You don't see the 9-month-old behind closed doors. And so these are the problems that are a blemish on my city, and I don't want that here. So I vote for this law to pass that, to get that homeless person off the street. and they just don't know of or don't care about the child that's being abused.
Yeah.
And so that's my mission with this documentary, with meeting the people like you, Jim, everybody my goal is to raise awareness and spread it out as much as possible. Can I effectuate some change? I don't know, but I will damn sure try my best to do it.
I'll tell you this. We live in a society that is obsessed with immediate gratification, and you're on social media, so you know what types of content gets attention. Storytelling is the wave of the future.
Facts.
And since America loves an underdog story already, people like me and you out there telling our stories, our scar stories, putting what we lived through into the service of another human being, that is the type of content that I think it's going to take, getting widespread traction and in front of everybody to get these conversations going. Because and I've noticed this over the last couple of years, when I'm able to go into the where I took you today and sit down with the hardcore, young mob or Memphis mob or GD, and he starts opening up and telling me some really fucked up shit that he went through as a kid, that's a big deal. That's a change.
That's huge.
And this didn't happen 5 years ago, 6 years
all.
ago. So what you're doing, and other people like us, it is working. These messages are getting pushed down, and it is becoming okay to talk about these things, at a one-on-one level.
Yeah.
I think we need to get to a point where these conversations are being had far more openly and in
front of bigger audiences.
bigger audiences.
100%.
Exactly. And that's how we're really going to change things.
No doubt.
Ben,
I'm so excited to see what you're doing and see where it goes, and I can't thank you enough for taking me through we could go for hours about what you're doing and where you've been.
We can.
Go check out Ben's story on the Sean Ryan podcast. Go just Google him. I'm sure you'll have a fun time
there's plenty.
going down that rabbit hole. But dude, thank you for what you do, man. Thank you
Dude,
for
son,
turning
thank
your
you,
pain into
man.
purpose. It's inspiring, bro, and I'm honored to call you a friend.
We're
and
honored to
be
have you,
amongst
man.
your company, man.
I can't wait to see what we do next. I love you, dude.
The band. We
Hell
fight
yeah.
monsters.
Hell yeah. The band. Make it happen.
It's coming.
What Ben's story shows us is that redemption isn't always about healing wounds. Sometimes it's about owning responsibility. Moral injury doesn't come from being hurt. It comes from knowing you should have acted differently and living with that awareness. Ben doesn't frame himself as a hero. He doesn't ask for absolution. He talks about accountability as something you carry, not something you perform. One of the hardest truths in this conversation is that systems don't change because they don't feel pain. People do. And people have to decide whether they'll keep protecting what's broken or risk becoming inconvenient. Memphis teaches us that history isn't distant, it's active. Every generation is asked the same question: what will you do with what you know? Ben's answer isn't perfect, and that's what makes it honest. He reminds us that courage isn't loud, it's consistent. It's choosing integrity even when it isolates you, even when it costs you comfort, and even when there's no applause. If this conversation made you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is often the first sign that something true has landed. This series isn't about condemnation, it's about conscience. This is Memphis, where silence has consequences, and truth still matters. I'll see you guys in the next one.